Have you ever came across anybody you just couldn't stand? I mean, somebody so bad, you can't believe they exist as a human being. When I first moved to Louisiana, I had this kind of person that was my boss. And we were actually in closing on a house as soon as we moved there, and we got out of that because we decided to rent because I realized I didn't want to be at that place pretty much as soon as I got there. And that's not a good feeling at all. But this guy would dish out paperwork like hash browns at Waffle House at 3 a.m. And in case you don't know what paperwork is, it's kind of like impeachment for the president. See, I thought impeachment for the president was just the president getting removed from office. But it turns out that it's just like paperwork. It's a slap on the butt. And if you get enough paperwork, it can eventually lead to you getting kicked out of the military. And anyways, I just got to Louisiana and I'm working the swing shift. And we have to review this document every night. And I've never seen this document before. It's the first time I've ever dealt with it. And I was running the shift. And at the end of the shift, you're supposed to put your initials at the top of it if you're running it. So I was up front with them. I was like, I never dealt with this document before. I don't know what I'm looking at. He's like, hey, there's another NCO on your shift. Make sure he just checks it over too, and then you can just sign it off. So that's exactly what I did at the end of the shift. I'm like, hey man, come over and look at this please. And he came over, he looked at it, and he said, yeah, it's all good. So I put my initials on the top of it. And it turns out there were errors on it that weren't supposed to be there. And of course he comes in the next day, identifies these errors, and he pulls me into his office. And he's like, hey, there's errors on this paperwork and your initials are at the top. I'm like, sir, I told you I didn't know what I was looking at. I mean, I did exactly what you said. I pulled the other guy over, had him look at it, and he said it was all good to go. And he's like, well, you're pencil whipping paperwork. And he's like, you know you can't be pencil whipping paperwork, right? He would always do that right before he gives somebody paperwork. He'd always be like, right? So I ended up getting paperwork for that despite doing everything right. And this guy had it out for me. Later on we were in a formation and he's all looking around the formation and he's like, where's Wayne? And I'm like, here sir. And he's like, oh, Wayne, I didn't see you back there. You look like an airman. I was like, I'm an NCO. And the guy next to me, who's my friend, he snickers a little bit and it makes me go like that. And immediately he's like, formation dismissed. Wayne, up to my office now. So I go up to his office and I stand at attention, waiting for him to show up. He goes in his office and sits down and calls me in. And he had this old like 1970s couch in there. And he's like, Wayne, come in here. Sit on the ugly couch. So I sit down on this couch and he's like, stand back up. So I stand back up and he's like, put your arms out. So I put my arms out and he's like, turn in a circle. So I'm like, and he says, you're fat. And at this point I did weigh about 70 more pounds than I do now. So I was pretty chunky back then. But I mean, you just don't say that to people. But I mean, I guess being in the military, you know. Anyways, he was like, you disrespected me in the formation. You know you're getting paperwork, right? And then it didn't stop there. We had a dress blues inspection that he wanted to do on everyone. And I knew it was bad news already because this happened after he called me fat. Sure enough, he sets up the formation and he does this bit. He's just walking through everybody and I'm in the back and I can see that he's just trying to get to me. And as he walks past everybody else in the formation, he gets to me and he stops. And starts looking at me and walks around me. And of course we're at attention because we're getting inspected. And he comes up behind me where his face is right here next to my ear. And he goes, yours is too tight. You know you're getting paperwork, right? I tell you, sometimes I don't even know if this is real life. I feel like, you ever seen the Truman Show? Yeah, I feel like that guy. Like everybody's watching me. The world's about me. I don't feel like anybody else in this world deals with some of the stuff that I deal with. What made me think of that story is one of the games we're reviewing today came from another person that is just like, is this real life? Like, dealing with this person was ridiculous. Back when I got my Switch kiosk, I found it through this other person. And it was located in Missouri. Anyways, he messaged the guy, he's a reseller, he messaged the other guy and tried to hit him up about the Switch kiosk so he could flip it to me. So after the guy didn't respond to him, he just sends me his contact info so I could message him directly. And that's exactly what I did. But by the time I did this, that guy had messaged him back. And then he told that guy, hey, don't respond to this other guy, just deal with me. I'm gonna come and get it. And I don't know everything he said to him, but this guy didn't message me back at all. He just dealt with this reseller so he could flip it to me. And this guy couldn't even drive to go and get this kiosk. And he was gonna get this kiosk for $800, but he needed a ride there. So this reseller is gonna sell me the Switch kiosk for $1,200 and then ask me to drive him up there to go get it. And $1,200 was still a good deal, so I'm stuck in this really weird situation where I gotta put my foot in my mouth and deal with this guy to get this Switch kiosk, even though I don't want to. And as you guys know, I traded for most of this collection from a local game store. And this guy had a couple games from the local game store that I knew what he paid for, but I needed them and he had them. So on the way to pick up the Switch kiosk, he shows me these games and I end up paying more for them, knowing what he paid for them, because I still couldn't have got them at that good of a deal if I had bought them on eBay. So I'm just like letting this guy win all around. But what am I supposed to do in this kind of situation? And I just kept having to tell myself, hey, you only got to deal with this for so long. You're gonna get what you need and then it's over. You don't have to deal with it anymore. I mean, these kind of people, they test your patience. They want to see how far they can push your limits. Well, anyways, I'm not in jail and I still have a job. So I guess I pass as a human being. But anyways, today we have 5 more games that we'll be adding to the collection and a stack of manuals. Let's check them out. And the first game up is Ninja Gaiden Trilogy. And this is the game I ended up buying from the guy for more than what he paid for it. Ninja Gaiden Trilogy was developed and published by Tecmo, releasing for the SNES in 1995. This game takes the 3 Ninja Gaiden games from the NES and puts them all onto one cart. However, this is not a great port of the games. First off, graphically, it's pretty much the same as the NES versions. They didn't make any effort to upgrade the graphics like they did for the Mario games and Super Mario All-Stars. Then there are the finicky controls. You use A to jump, B to swing your sword, and up and B to use your special weapon. None of the other buttons are used for anything, which is a bummer. I understand they were trying to keep it true to the original games, but they could have at least added an option to change the controls. I would have much rather used the X button for the special weapon than up and B. You also have faulty hit detection and end up getting hit by enemies you should have taken out. Finally, there's the music. It sounds worse than the NES version, and the sound effects will many times make the music cut out. The only nice feature they added to the game was a password system to allow you to start up where you left off the game. If you want to play the Ninja Gaiden games, it's best to play the NES versions. This game is expensive, and it's actually cheaper to buy all 3 on NES than buying this one game. Ninja Gaiden Trilogy is game number 138 for the collection, and I paid $400 for it. And at $400, that brings our total up to $25,058 for the collection. And the next thing we have up is a stack of manuals that I got. and some are already in the boxes they belong with. Some I don't have boxes and cards for yet, so I just have them out. And those manuals are Star Trek Deep Space Nine, The Legend of the Mystical Ninja, Rocky Rodent, which I already have the cart for, The Adventures of Mighty Max, manual and cart. Additionally, I got Space Football, Pack Attack, Obidus, Super R-Type, and Tecmo Superbowl II. This stack of manuals cost me $50 at Retro Rick's Game Point. And at $50, that brings our total up to $25,108 for the SNES Quest. And the next game up is Tecmo Superbowl II. Tecmo Superbowl II Special Edition was developed and published by Tecmo, releasing for the SNES in 1995. We've already covered the first Tecmo Superbowl game on the system, and I can say they made some big improvements in Tecmo Superbowl II. The biggest thing is they got rid of the iron wall players, at least while you're playing offense. In the first game, if you hit any player, even your own team, they would stop you dead in your tracks from running. You can run smoothly up and down the field in this version. But just like the first version, when you get knocked down on defense, it takes you so long to get back up that the other team can be making a touchdown. And they made it extra dramatic when your player falls in this game. They can even end up rolling halfway across the field when they fall. Come on! You have 2 playbooks to choose from, each with 8 plays in them. It's the most unique strategy selection I've seen in any football game on the SNES. The controls are good for the most part, but they did occasionally feel unresponsive at times. You can change the weather from clear to rainy to snow, which is a nice touch, but the colors seem to blend together when playing in the snow. Overall, Tecmo Superbowl II is a fun football game for the SNES. It's worth checking out if you can find a copy. Tecmo Superbowl II is game number 139 for the collection, and the box and cart cost me $165 shipped. And we just covered the manual in the lot. And at $165, that brings our total up to $25,273 for the collection. Now, this game was so expensive because it was a special edition released in limited quantities. And there was only 15,000 of these produced. So that's why this game is so expensive. And the next game up is Super Chase HQ. Super Chase HQ was developed and published by Taito, crashing on a store's shelves in 1992. You play as an undercover cop driving a red sports car. You get a briefing from Nancy at the beginning of each level, telling you what the criminal is driving and what they're armed with.
This is Nancy.
She tells you through an advanced car comp link system. That's fancy, Nancy. The bottom line, your goal is to weave through traffic until you find a criminal at the end of each stage. Then you just ram him over and over until his damage meter runs out. You also run into occasional other criminals, but it's the same thing with them. You just ram the crap out of them. The scenery and visuals look great in the game, but it's always hard telling where curves are in games like this. The vehicles always seem to change lanes and cut you off too. I really like the controls as well. It's pretty easy to keep your car on the road compared to similar games. The game lacks in the sound department. When you pass cars, it sounds more like lightsabers than anything else. And when you get to a boss, the music cuts out and just goes to a siren. You get a total of 3 cars in the game, and once you use all 3 cars, it's game over. But if you manage not to lose all your cars, you can beat the game in less than a half hour, with there only being 5 levels. One really interesting feature in the game is you downshift with L in a manual or automatic, but automatics can only shift up automatically. Try saying that 5 times fast. Overall, Super Chase HQ is an okay game. It's still playable today. Super Chase HQ is game number 140 for the collection, and I have $150 in trade for it. And at $150, that brings our total up to $25,423 for the Super Nintendo Complete in Box Quest. And the next game up is Looney Tunes B-Ball. Looney Tunes B-Ball was developed by Sculptured Software and published by Sunsoft. It dunked into stores in 1995. Here's a quality basketball game with a ton of options. Starting off, the game uses a multi-tap, so you can play with up to 4 players. You have 8 players to choose from as well, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. Up next, you have a wacky meter that puts gems on the court. Selecting 1 won't put any gems, and selecting 5 will load gems on the court. There are 3 different gems: blue, which is worth 1 cent, red which is worth 5, and green which is worth 25 cents. Gems allow you to do Acme plays. Not acne plays like the kid in high school played using Zima pads on his face. Cool plays like a cream pie which lets you throw your ball at an opponent to disable them. Time bomb which turns the ball into a bomb and you can pass it to the other team. Backdoor which warps your teammate to the basket, and others including long range, which is my favorite, that allows you to shoot some crazy baskets from behind the half court line. You also have some Acme moves on defense. There's also the standard difficulty option and follow mode, which determines if you will control the ball or the computer when you pass to them. Another cool feature is you can pause the game, hit A, B, X, and Y, and it will abort the game. The game is set up a lot like NBA Jam, where you use the L and R buttons to run and do some crazy dunks. The graphics look amazing, the controls are spot on, and the game is just excellent all around. My go-to basketball game on the SNES has always been NBA Jam, but this is an excellent alternative. If you're looking for a fun basketball game on the SNES, check out Looney Tunes B-Ball. Looney Tunes B-Ball is game number 141 for the collection, and I found the box at ARX Game Convention for $20. Then I found the cart for $20 as well at Retro Video Game in Hot Springs. And then I later found the manual for $40 shipped, bringing our total up to $80. And at $80, that brings our total up to $25,503 for the SNES Quest. Last but not least is Super R-Ttype. Super R-Ttype was developed and published by IREM, releasing for the Super Nintendo in 1991. The powers of the evil Bido Empire have returned. Now stronger than ever, these diabolical extraterrestrials are poised to attack the Earth. Mankind has just one hope against these mutant beasts. The formidable R9 is heading for the front lines at the very frontiers of space. Armed with the high-powered advanced technology defenses, it is the ultimate battle machine. But is it enough? The answer is no, it's not enough. This game slapped me in the mouth and called me Sally. It's super hard. Even on the novice setting, I found myself constantly being taken out after the first level. You have one-shot kills and no checkpoints. So if you get hit at the end of a stage, it's back to the beginning. And you have to make it flawlessly through again without making a single mistake. But with a little practice and understanding of the mechanics of the game, it does get easier. The key in the game is the laser units. You have 5 different lasers that all do different things, like the blue, which reflects blue lasers everywhere, pink, which is a circular laser, and the green split laser, which shoots fireballs in a split pattern, just to name a few. You also have different missiles you can get, but using the laser units correctly will make or break the game for you. You can detach it from the ship and it will fire in a different pattern in front of or behind you. You can also move it from the front of the ship to the back of the ship and vice versa. It's a cool mechanic and very handy when you get used to it. There are some really cool looking level designs and the music is excellent too. The controls work perfect and the ship speed is good once you find the speed power up in each level. Overall, Super R-Ttype is hard, but a fun shmup for the system. It's worth giving a play if you're a fan of side-scrolling shoot-'em-ups. Super R-Ttype is game number 142 for the collection, and I got the box and cart for $25 at Kansas City Retro Game Convention. And we just covered the manual in the lot. And at $25, that brings our total up to $25,528 for the Super Nintendo Complete in Box Quest. Let's get these games on the shelf. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to subscribe. I'm completing the entire Super Nintendo library, complete in box, right here on this show. Also, make sure to leave a thumbs up for Looney Tunes B-Ball. Until next time, I'm Gamer Wayne, and thanks for watching.